Evolve 360, a holistic approach to life, is an exploration of learning through experience to transform individually and culturally as a whole by taking a 360-degree look at our quality of life, including the limiting beliefs, worn-out paradigms, and destructive habits that have led us to where we are today, and to instead create or revolutionize a new life vision that brings greater peace, appreciation, fulfillment, clarity, happiness, and joy as we ultimately evolve. So in our last episode, Shelley and I touched on so many points concerning the current protests sparked by the horrific death of George Floyd and the misuse of power at the hands of law enforcement officials. But we felt we had to go into the subject a little bit deeper. So in this episode, we will be rehashing, I guess, power and social injustice, part 2, but we will be discussing the hypocrisy of America, collar restraints used by law enforcement, and the symbolic meaning behind the archetypal forces that are currently active in our country and what they represent symbolically to help navigate us through an outcome that brings one of unity for our country and for all those people that are in it. So let's dive in. Welcome to the Evolve 360 show with hosts
Cheli Grace
and Shelley Devine. So yes, we're here once again, and yeah, we're going to get into this whole, oh boy, all this stuff that's going on in our country and, in America, with power and social injustice. This is part 2 of an episode we did earlier this week. And I just want to say, yeah, I'm feeling it. The negativity, the rage, the anger. I feel the weight of it.
The heaviness, right?
The heaviness
your
of
energy
it.
is tired and sluggish and just sadness. I feel sadness in my heart.
Yeah.
So we decided to do a part 2 because we wanted to help address this and try and raise the vibration and bring light where there is so much darkness, so much darkness.
And this vibration is permeating into our households through the media. So we're all experiencing it. And even if you have the media off, you're still probably most likely experiencing this because we're all connected. Yes. We're all one, and that energy vibrates into us all, into our cell tissue. And what Shelley and I, like Shelley just said, is we want to raise the vibration out of despair, out of grief, loss, anger. Anger is a way to move through stuff, and it can be positive depending on how it's directed, but you can't stay there. You have to move into higher vibrations of peacefulness,
anger, fear. We have to go into courage and hope and love.
Yeah.
And I've been praying. We've been meditating. We prayed before this show because I think it's so important to no matter how small of an act of prayer you do, it does make a change. It's a ripple effect. It's positive consciousness trying to change this collective one that is in this darkness, trying to move forward. And this is what this show's about. It's about just trying to shed some light onto everything that's happened. And I know so many people that have created prayer groups and meditation, not only because of what's happened now with George Floyd, but because of the pandemic. We are in a situation of uncertainty with that. A lot of people don't have jobs. They're unemployed. They've lost their normalcy, their routines. They just don't know what's next. And it's so important that we ground ourselves and we pray and we trust that everything that's going to happen is going to be positive. And we have to have that courage to move forward with love and, understanding that we are all one. We are all human beings. We are all Americans. And I say that in the highest regard because I came to this country as a refugee. I was born into a communist country, and to me, America is the symbol of freedom. And we're going to talk about that in this show. And what I do to one person, I do to everybody. And this is the collective group that is happening right now with all of this pain that we have because all of the things that have happened. And I remind you again that not one tiny act of kindness, one small prayer, no matter how insignificant, it does make a difference. It creates a ripple effect. And I want to start the show with a quote from a speech that Abraham Lincoln gave when he won. He was at the cemetery in Gettysburg. It's called the Gettysburg Address. They had just won the Civil War. It was 4 months afterwards. And he was there burying the men that had died for our freedom. And it's so important because to me, this is the significance of my freedom, what this country gave me in freedom. And what he said was, 77 years ago, referring to the signing of the Declaration of Independence, our forefathers brought forth on this continent a new nation conceived in liberty and dedicated to the proposition that all men are created equal, that this nation under God shall have a new birth of freedom, and that government of the people, by the people, for the people, shall not perish from the earth. And Lincoln was our president who emancipated freedom and, created a whole new world for the whole nation. Mm-hmm. So I wanted to start with that and set that tone because at the end, it's all about our freedom, our purpose in this world. And interestingly enough, since we are all connected, when we were reviewing the show notes, we noticed that there has been a huge also an instability in other countries. In Australia, the civil rights movement was coming up, and in other countries of all of the things that have been happening, just and Shelley's going to talk about that with all these things that we just want to make sure that you understand that no matter what we do for one person, it is a ripple effect throughout this world. Yeah. So we have to stay in the light, we have to be in prayer, and we have to just know that things are going to happen because people are working behind the scenes to make this world a better place for all of us.
Yeah. And just to add to that, this country with our founding fathers was started on the premise of freedom for all and independence for all people, not just a segmented group of people, but for all people. And that was part of is what this country's about. And we have been off that course for some time. Probably, after Lincoln, started, probably that ripple effect started happening even after, he emancipated, the slaves by, winning the Civil War and all that. But right now, what we're currently seeing is civil unrest in our country. And there is, the masses, people who are peacefully protesting, but then there are some that aren't, and the police officers that are also on the forefront of this to protect, people's property or whatever. But we're seeing a lot of probably, unnecessary violence on both sides, and that needs to cease. And how do we go about doing that? And it's, changing our vibration. There's a lot of people that are protesting now that are extremely peaceful doing so. And I applaud them for remaining that way because I'm sure they are seeing things out there during these protests that are enraging and a lot of causing anger.
A lot of police officers that are uniting with them in solidarity to work to say, look, we get you, we know, we don't agree, we are one, and we're here, and we're going to walk with you all throughout. They're praying with them, they're kneeling them, they're walking with them. So a lot of things are happening to start those changes. We are becoming aware, but we have to stay in that higher vibration. We have to bring the light in.
And keep your eye on the light. Keep
Yes.
your eye on the light and what it is, the intention, the main intention and purpose of this is to actually really create the changes that are necessary, that we all are asking for to come in, and to be working together with our Black brothers and sisters for this change of equality. And it's not just Black people's fight. It's anybody that has felt somehow insignificant because of a preference or a color or their religious beliefs or their sexual preferences or any of that.
Any minority, anybody who's
this is inclusive of all that. It's just it's just, you know, Black people are now coming out of that chokehold.
Yes. And we need to talk about that symbolically. And I think that's a really great segue to once again talk about that. What symbolically and archetypically that meant when that was happening.
Yeah.
It's your will. It's your will.
Yeah. There's the power of choice, but I think one of the biggest things is, I'm gonna, circle back to the symbology of George Floyd's death. And in those 8 minutes, what was happening there symbolically is his throat chakra, the center of power of will. There's a connection here with willpower that is connected to yourself, your own willpower, but also the will of God, and connecting. That's the higher purpose of this area in your throat, this energy area in your throat. But what was happening there, and this is really, he was begging, and not only him, there were people standing by, observers, watching, witnessing this, and begging for these men to stop, choking him, choking the life out of him, choking the breath out of him. It wasn't just his neck, it was also his heart.
He was
center.
Pleading for mercy. And
he was begging,
mercy.
Yes, he was begging for mercy, but they're choking out these heart centers, these vibrational centers. They're very significant. The whole system, what they did. And in that, these people are begging for mercy. George Floyd was begging for mercy, and it was a denial of mercy. And this is a representation of what the Black people have been crying for, is mercy within their culture, to have the same benefits as we do as anybody else in this country. And they have not received that. They have not received that.
I think that what's happening is people are becoming more aware, and change is happening. There's some change that is happening.
Yeah.
Totally happening.
Absolutely.
Totally happening.
Yeah. There's been already some things into play, which, certain officials have stated, like out in California, they are going to, they're thinking of defunding the police force, which is interesting. But then where does that, and put that money into the Black communities to help.
But here's my thought on that. Because when we were doing the show notes, I had a question, and I said, how did the police force come about?
Yeah.
And basically it came about during the colonies, when America was colonized way back.
Yeah.
They had what was called the night watchmen.
Yeah.
Kind of like what we saw in Game of Thrones, for those of you who watched Game of Thrones. Mm-hmm. And it was basically policing. It was informal and communal, and they were volunteers, and they didn't really do crime. What they did was impending danger. Yeah. If there was going to be, an army coming to invade them, it was impending danger. And then, interestingly enough, the first municipal police department was formed in 1838 in Boston. Mm. And isn't that interesting? and then
Boston's a source of a lot of stuff, man. I'm telling you, you got to look at this city. We got a long, strong history here.
Yeah,
And,
Boston.
and there's a lot of positive things
absolutely.
And you know, good examples of ways of being, and you know, there are a lot of officers that have, you know, dropped the knee in solidarity of what is currently happening. There are officers that I would think even in their private lives are struggling with what is going on out there.
Oh, I know a lot of them are.
Yeah. And
I mean, I know because I'm friends with a lot of police officers, some in my city that, you know, joined in solidarity and prayer with some of the protesters. Yeah. And this is what I want to say, that not everybody is in the dark. We have people that are out there in the front lines trying to make a difference. And I'm praying for those people that difference continues to trickle like a ripple effect.
Yeah.
And we make change. We were talking about, the other thing we were talking about, which, you know, we just trying to wrap our hands around it. And then all of a sudden the immunity, the immunity bill, you know, there was a law that was passed way back because of police officers. And now there's a bill that was just enacted by to take that immunity law off the books. Yeah. Totally. And I think what's happening is that there's so many laws, there's so many things that through the decades and through the years no longer serve us.
Yeah.
And they have to be peeled back, and they have to be readdressed and revisited and redone. And, you know, I don't have the answers, and neither, I don't know, Shelley, you know, we were talking about that, but it's about shedding light on the truth and working towards a positive solution for all, in a positive way.
Yeah.
And, you know, we do need systems in place, because then I worry, well, what's going to happen if we don't have a system in place?
Well, there's so many hurdles. I just read from people that actually have been in law enforcement and helped to train law enforcement officers. And what they were saying is, well, the time spent, this is the cost of it. The time spent to train these officers appropriately, say in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, which is a martial art that, if people aren't aware, it's a martial art that does show how to do proper restraining of people through choking, through arm, you know, restraints and joint restraints and stuff, to control a person that might be violent or could potentially hurt someone in an extreme case. However, to train somebody like that, the liability that is involved and the time taken away, because it takes so much time to train somebody in that, say, that art of self-protection. And here we have, you know, some of these officers using some of those tactics that are now considered you know, illegal. But I know there's police officers that train in this Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, say, and they've trained for years and are very adept in using, say, a chokehold, like not like the one that was used on George Floyd, but
that wasn't a chokehold.
No, that wasn't. That was a knee, which
a knee on the neck.
I don't think any martial artist would have known that shouldn't have been used.
You know, like martial arts all your life, so you would know.
Yeah, you would know. And I mean, and you don't even have to be a martial artist to know that what was happening there was obviously that guy.
Oh no, that
knee off. I mean, it was obvious.
No, that was obvious. But but from what you were saying, I know you've been in martial arts all your life, and I'm sure you've had extensive. I mean, you all your life.
But it takes time, and what they're saying about that is for police officers to appropriately protect themselves. Say in a high stress situation where you have somebody who's extremely violent or could cause injury to not just yourself as an officer, but to those people around. You know, it takes years of training and practice, and that isn't typically what happens, you know, say in law enforcement training. Although there are, and then there's insurance issues. Will they be insured? If they're training in that, there's time taken away from, when they're working. So then they have to have other people on. So I guess the expense of it alone is what they're saying is too expensive to do.
I know,
which seems kind of ridiculous when you see what's happening now, because they are trained
right
to a certain point, but they're trained probably incorrectly.
Well, I know for a fact now that it's Minneapolis just passed a law on Friday that there is not going to be any more chokeholds, and they're going to start doing a whole new system of accountability within their department.
Yeah.
I know, Colorado, California, they're not utilizing these, that they're totally looking and just taking that off. And, you have to start looking at a different way of doing things, because it doesn't serve us anymore. And training police officers and seeing what's going to work.
Yeah.
I do believe that we need a system in place, because, a system of laws and a system of order.
Yeah.
And what that system is going to look like, I don't know. Yeah. But I do believe in my fellow police officers that are my friends and are good people and have helped me when I was a school principal go to, the inner cities and help those children and, do all kinds of things for those families.
Right. Because they do. They do.
Yes, they do. They do a lot.
Yeah.
If it wasn't for the Police Benevolent Association, a lot of the kids, when I was serving in one of my inner city schools, wouldn't have the benefit of being able to play professional football when they were older. Mm-hmm. So I want to shed the light on all the good, because it's so important. I know that there's a lot of bad, but I don't want to put everybody in the same category. What I want to do is shine the awareness so that together we can make a difference. And that's basically what we're talking about here.
Yeah, and there are things that are happening now that are good. We are seeing things that are being reported in local news feeds of some good things that are occurring. There's some, solidarity here and there. We see even political representatives marching with.
Yes.
Which is really a good sign, because they're not like, they're in with the people now, and
of course, and they have to be,
even and
lose sight of the foundation of, when you get into office, you always have to have your pulse on what's really going on.
Yeah.
And talking to people and seeing what their concerns are.
Yeah.
And listening to them is so important.
Yeah.
And it's just so important for everyone to start, listening, becoming aware, and talking and making a change for the positive.
Yeah.
Making a change. You have to make a change.
Yeah.
It's about your truth. It's about staying in your alignment with truth and integrity. So important.
Yeah. Yeah, it's interesting too about like how our country did start with, how law enforcement did start, but I'm even going to bring it even further back, like what a law enforcement individual represents, and they take an oath to serve the public and to serve, the community and keep it safe. But it's funny because the original badge was the shield of a knight. And their coat of arms of the knight, is allegiance to justice. Mm-hmm. And right now we've seen a lot of injustice, and it's chivalry, but the shadow side of it, which Shelley touched on a little bit, was the bringing in the Game of Thrones theme.
Yes,
the Dark Knight. And we're seeing both sides of that currently. Mm-hmm. We see, the chivalrous, the good knight in the police officers that are maybe dropping a knee in solidarity and then trying to do right. But then they're alongside with some people who have that dark knight force in them, who are behaving inappropriately and harming people because they are given the authority to do so by this hierarchy.
By the badge is what you're saying.
Well, the hierarchy is not even the badge. It's, their captain or their, whoever's is above them, these tiers of power that are above them, and it trickles down, and they're just loyally following, what they're told to do. Somewhat like, which I touched on in our last talk, the slave, where you have no choice but to follow what you're being directed to by your master, which could be in this hierarchy of officials. And right now we kind of have to debunk that, getting back to that throat chakra, and saying, where is your will and where is the loyalty? Because the knight, which is basically that our police officers are knights. And, they're representative of that archetypal force of a knight, who holds the shield and then will battle to protect the weak, the meek, and do the right thing.
Absolutely.
They have a high honor code, and they take an oath
and
to do that. So what is happening now with the police officers on a symbolic level and a spiritual level is they have to go internally and ask. And this is where, Shelley was saying, I know officers that are home praying, and they're praying for this change. Well, those ones are having, I would say, a dark night of the soul right now, because what's happening with them is they're seeing right now, okay, who do I serve? And then they have to come into the next step is, do I follow my superior, or do I follow my own integrity?
Right.
And then eventually what they have to do is surrender the will to God's will. That is the highest, and to trust and have faith in that. That is the highest phase of this, of what is currently happening now. Symbolically is what is happening right now. And some of these people give their lives for this. A knight will give his life, will die on his shield for this. Yes. And that is what a police officer represents. And later at the end of this, I have a young police officer who has since been deceased, but I have a poem to read about, and it speaks to this, the lies of what has been going on. And this is something that was written 33 years ago.
Underground.
Underground, and it is just surfaced with everything that has come up now, and I'll save it for the end because it's very powerful, and
it's how he personally felt, right?
As a police officer, yes. Did he saw this, firsthand, and he was against the lying and the deceit in the police force, which was out in California at the time, pre-Rodney King event.
Okay.
It was pre that. And he was speaking out against it then, prior to.
And I know that you said he was deceased. Did he stay in the police force, or did he leave?
I'm not sure what he was only on the police force there for 3 years. I'm not sure of the details of that. But I think it was with a heavy heart for him to have to be he might have been pushed out. I don't know what the details are.
And what we were talking about too, that Shelley was saying, is that those police officers that we know are home praying because they do want this change, because they don't go along with the status quo. What happens is, if you don't go into your truth, that in turn affects your cell tissue, and it affects, you're going against your belief system, you're going against a truth. And that has repercussions internally for how your health is going to be. That's why it's so important to always, check with yourself, check with your intuition, and, don't ever do anything that goes against your will, goes against what you really feel is the right thing. And this is what's happening right now. People are stepping up. Yeah. And I know that there's a lot of whistleblowers, and that's a new archetype now, the whistleblower archetype, and how they're just speaking up.
Yeah. But the whistleblower is, because he's telling the truth,
Right.
is considered, somebody who should be held, taken into courts or whatever, and being persecuted.
But there should be a venue, a way for anonymity, and then for the world to be able to do their own investigations without that person feeling harm or feeling, that something horrible is going to happen to them or their family. Because this is the new archetype that has come up, which is that people, because of their integrity and because of the way that they're feeling, and yes, it has to be investigated, because sometimes things could be said and they are a total untruth. So you just can't go on, there has to be a process to unveil and to uncover and then to make right. But it has to go through a process. And I know that the whistleblowers, a lot of them have suffered a lot of damage. But that's another thing, how do we continue to move forward, and how do we bring light onto things without making that person, be put in a bad light, be put in a bad way, because they want to step out and say the truth.
Well, the great contaminant is lying.
Right.
It's lying.
Right.
It's not telling the truth. And there's a lot of that in cover-ups and that are currently in our government. And it's also seen in our legal system, in the laws that have been created over the past, I don't know how many years, but
some of them have been in the books since the beginning of time.
Yeah.
And I think that now, because of the whole world being in this transformation, things are coming into the light and things are being exposed, and, we have to act on them. And, we go back to, we are all one. Yeah. We are all one.
It's kind of like, Pandora's box just got opened up again. It was opened up back in 9/11 when that went off. And then the lies were told about, weapons of mass destruction over in the Middle East. We never found any. Those are lies. They were lies that were told by government officials to support an agenda for whatever that was. I don't know what it was, but that's where we're seeing the lies, and we are unsure of what to believe, because we're wrapped up in our own lives, and we're like, we're letting it kind of go, and we're not being vigilant in looking. You're not being aware. Things. You're not being. Well, we're deciding not to be, because I know I'm guilty of that, because I was like, oh, the hell with them. I don't know what they're doing. They're all a bunch of crooks, and I'm fed up. My vote doesn't count. I have felt that in my, every time an election comes up or something, I'm like, oh, you get angst, right? Yeah, is anything that I do going to matter? And that's where people feel this disengagement and this civil unrest, because it's in everything.
Voting matters, and I like to vote, and I like to vote in person. I don't like to vote mailed in ballot. Yeah. And I guess because I'm in Florida, I want to make sure that my vote counts. But I agree with you. You start getting all twisted, because it's frustrating. Well, it is very frustrating. Yeah. Because I'm not a political person, and I like to vote for someone who's going to make a change and a difference and make our world better. Right. But then, it's you go into angst, because you're like, oh my gosh. But
so now that whole house of cards is being ripped down right now. The whole house of cards is crumbling. Right. And I think the pandemic set the pace for it, because it was it shook. I don't know. Was it you that said it? Shook things up. And so now the bricks are coming loose. Right. Everything got shook up and bricks are coming loose.
Everything is getting shaken out. Everything.
So now we're starting to see things. We're like, whoa, what's going on here?
There were cracks in the foundation.
Yeah.
Education, healthcare, government. And now those cracks are starting it's like they're starting to come apart, and chunks of the cement is starting to fall off.
Yeah.
You know, I can speak on education because that's been my life, you know, my vocation for 30 years. And I know that we need to put a change in that.
Yeah. Well, innovation is creative destruction, you know. So our current systems are getting deconstructed. And that's a positive thing. We just have to make sure the right people who have a great deal of wisdom, education, and know-how are put into places, or that will show up at the right time, to assist and help to restructure and rebuild. Because I know that's the great American, that's what we're all about. That's what America's all about. After World War I or II or whatever, we went over and helped rebuild countries. Well, we got to rebuild our own now.
No, we have to take care of us now.
Yeah.
We have to take care of this country. We have to make sure that, you know, everything that's being deconstructed is reconstructed in a new way for the greater good of all mankind and for everyone. Because it's time. It's time.
Absolutely. Yeah, we're totally on the forefront of, I mean, this is definitely going to keep us moving forward. But on that note is we do have to maintain a high frequency vibration, and we can't allow ourselves to settle into the negativity in this low frequency, fear, rage, anger, and all those kind of like things that weigh us down, that confuse us, that make it difficult for us to see truth when we see it. We know this in our guts, what is true. We have our own like energetic guidance system that will intuitively, that steers us right from wrong. And if we don't go to the right, which is in alignment with, say, universal life force energy, the globe, the mother, the earth, if we come out of alignment with that, we feel it in our cell tissue, we become sick. We will become either cancerous, we will have, you know, high blood pressure, heart disease, mental illness. We will, you know, narcissism, like all these kind of negative sorts of things will occur in us. And they're pretty clearly easy to point out, some easy to see from an outsider can easily determine, okay, something about this feels a little wrong. And you have to trust your gut about that, you know? And everything that we're seeing in the media right now, on our Facebook feed, when you're watching that in the news, and you see something, you know, with a shadow knight or a police officer clubbing a pedestrian or shoving an elderly man, then those things we know intuitively that was really wrong. And then for the entire group, it was just for an entire group just to keep walking and not helping the man.
Right.
You know, like that's wrong too. There's some complicitness in that. And it came, maybe, I don't know what it comes down to, but there's something about that where us on the outside viewing that, okay, so it's pretty clear there is a problem with how we are rearing our night watchmen or our watchmen, you know, who are supposed to protect our community, our neighborhoods. They're not protecting. There's something amiss, and we have to go in and restructure this. And we are seeing that clearly now. And so the thing to do to help with this is, as we move closer to, you know, maybe having some power to vote coming in November or whatever, and is to maintain in our daily lives clarity and to do things that are positive, like go out and garden to raise your vibration, connect with the earth, connect with the mother, pray. If you know, but if you're not a prayer, what do you do? How do you change your vibration? The things that you can do: one word, just say love over and over again, or say peace over and over again in your mind when you start to get negative, or you feel like, okay, I feel heavy. I don't know why I feel this way. You have to come up with other things that will shift and change or keep a vibration, because it's affecting everyone. It affects me.
Totally.
It affects
or if you feel
me.
angry, sometimes you wake up and you're angry and you don't know why you're angry.
It affects
It's the collective.
everyone.
It is.
It affects everyone. And if you come into that understanding that it does do that, then you're on the right path, because then you realize that all is one. We're all in this together. And that everything that is occurring right now, we are a part of.
Yeah.
And we can't escape it. We are all a part of it. And yeah, I'm like, I don't even know what more to say about that, because that's the bottom line, and it's very simple. It's very simple.
Right. And starting to shift and empowering other people, because the problem with power is that people are afraid that if they give somebody else power, they're going to, lose it.
Yeah.
Like, it's so important to understand that there is enough to go around. And we're not talking about police brutality, that kind of power. We're not talking about that kind of power. Yeah. What we're talking about is if somebody, gets a degree and gets a job, if they gets a promotion, be happy for them, be glad, surround yourself with people that are positive. Yeah. That, it's important to empower others to be the best at who they can be. Yeah. Because that's going to raise our level of America to a whole new height. Yeah. But so many times people don't empower others, and that is not what we need to do to move forward.
Yeah. 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 We're in a place now where we have to liberate, to win back freedom for all of people in every way, shape, or form, and eliminate oppression, various forms of oppression. And examples of that are Abraham Lincoln, he was a liberator, Mahatama Gandhi, Nelson Mandela. These are other people in other countries that have done a lot of work on liberating people, people that we look at as a segment, like that are looked down upon. I use this term, and I find it now offensive, minority. And I'm like, I need another term, because why am I using that term, minority, towards a Black person?
Or Hispanic,
because
because I'm Cuban, and
that's what I mean. That's what I mean. That's a demographic. Yeah, it's a demographic. It's a stereotype. Exactly. It's kind of like I'm like, that's what, and I'm like, what is the new word or term? A Black person. Why are we saying minorities still? Every time it comes up for me, I'm like, wow, what do I say? I don't even know what to say, because it doesn't feel right saying it.
Right. I'm sure there'll be a new term coming up. That's for sure.
Yeah. It's just,
that's for sure.
So many, just.
But I'm so glad you brought up the changing of one's energy, because it's so true. During this time, sometimes we just feel so heavy. We're so sad, so angry. Yeah. And just, saying love. We need to be in love. We need to have faith. We need to just, and if you don't pray or meditate, just positive words like love. Love is a universal language. Love. Mm-hmm. So important.
Yeah. Yeah. And then try your best to feel it, and feel it in your heart, feel it in your soul.
In your heart.
And really feel it, and then let that expression move out in every direction.
Right. Yeah. Oh.
Yeah.
It's so important to help each other during this time. And I have great faith that from all of this, something good is coming out of it. I have total great faith.
Yeah. Absolutely. You know, we have the Statue of Liberty. We've got a lot of liberators out there working.
Statue of Liberty.
You know, we got a lot of liberators that are working hard in
behind the scenes.
Behind the scenes. We will probably never know their names, but they are out there and they are creating change. They're being agents or angels of change.
Angels,
and liberators.
Yes. And you know, I visited the Statue of Liberty last summer. I had never gone there, and it was so impactful.
Yeah.
Just how this country has accepted everybody.
Yeah.
You know, you're tired, you're poor, you're hungry.
Huddled masses yearning to breathe free. Breathe free.
There it is, the breath.
You know, the wretched refuse of your teeming shore. Send these, the homeless, tempest tossed to me. I lift my lamp beside the golden gate. Golden door, sorry, yeah.
Yes, but it was very profound going and seeing. And how many lives have been impacted because of freedom and of liberty. I know I can attest that for myself because of where I was born. And
I know you came from, you know, Cuba. It was, you fled that country.
Yes.
You know, it was communist, right?
Absolutely. And I was very fortunate that my parents were able to leave and take me with them and come to this country and start all over again. And this country basically is made up of people that have come from all parts of the world. And it's so important that we are one. This is one beautiful nation.
And that's what patriotic is.
Yes.
Because that's what the true patriot is for.
Right.
You know, it's not for fighting for like the government and corporate whatever. No. It is for
I'll tell you,
who loves, supports, defends his or her country in the interest of devotion, a person who regards himself or herself as a defender, especially of individual rights against presumed interference by the federal government. There you go. So any of you guys that are claiming to be patriots, you guys got to look at that, what the original patriotic spirit was when this country came into being.
Right.
You know, I mean, like that's why people come to this country.
Totally. Every day for a whole new opportunity. Yeah. Life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. Wow. Wowza. You had a lot of like notes on stuff there, young lady, that I was like, whoa. I don't know if did we touch on all of them?
We did.
We did?
We did. We've been working very hard to put together a good episode on part 2 of power and social injustice, to bring the light and to bring a higher vibration into everything that's going on, and to, you know, share with you guys that one thought, no matter how small, in a positive way towards someone or something, will totally change the way that things are happening into a positive light. And it's so important. We have really gone through a lot of this, Shelley. Yes.
Yeah, we did.
So, and we're back on track. Then our next show next week is going to be back on our regular schedule. We just felt we needed to do this special 2-part episode on this and power, and the importance of understanding that if you empower someone else, that does not take a power away from you. On the contrary, it gives you more power, because now, you know, you are, it brings the world in a better place, higher vibration by empowering others. You don't lose your power. You give it to someone else, and you acknowledge, and you know, it just makes us better. It totally makes us better. So don't be afraid to empower someone else. Don't.
Yeah, so I think we'll now finish with that poem I had mentioned earlier.
Yes.
And It was written by a friend of mine. Her name's Cindy Stumpo, and some of you may have known her. She's a very well-known builder of luxury homes here in Boston.
Did she write it, or did her brother write it?
Her brother wrote it, and he was an LA police officer for 3 years, starting in 1985. He studied criminal justice here at Northeastern University, and he definitely struggled with how law enforcement was treating people. In this poem that I'm going to read, it was written before he died. He was, I think, 28 years old. I'm not sure the circumstances of his death, but I think he had already left the police department. And it's very powerful. There are some words that aren't meant to be derogatory towards anybody, and I don't mean them that way, and I don't believe he did either in the poem. So please excuse the N word, that I will say it while reading the poem. But other than that, it left me with this feeling for young cadets or police officers that are now struggling with this situation, who may be fearful of standing up, and because of what they might lose or whatever. And I'm sure it speaks to what they might be feeling, because I know this young man really hit on a lot of chords, and this was written pre-Rodney King, a year before that happened, I guess. But I'll do my best to read it, and I do it with much honor and respect to Cindy's family, the Leonard family. Her brother, Craig R. Leonard, is the author of this poem, and it's pretty profound. So if you want to just shut your eyes maybe and come into a feeling of love and peace. This is very heavy, but it's also powerful. Where did the love go? Oh, you see, I came from a once long lost free and caring society that is now concerned only with the me. Those are so full of anger, scapegoating, and much hostility projected toward this very little, so harmless in society. The people feeling tall, fail to see superiors so bold, stripped the rights that once founding fathers died for young and old. The media went along for fear, hate, and scare, were better sold. Now the truth would not be told. Violation of rights, beatings in the nights, lying, denying, and dying became a reality called police tyranny. The majority commended, applauded, and sang out with glee. Us, the police, went after society's unwanted little fleas. Robbers, rapists, murderers, and politicians, they weren't. Just a few deviants in the visibility of the streetlights. First, the sleazy whores fled in the night, only to be beat by that PD night. Strip clubs, bars, and bookstores, a have for the late night fete, were soon closed, leaving not a place for those perverts to meet. The faggots, queens, and dykes would next be beat. After this, the boozers, addicts, niggers, and wetbacks would boon that same hot seat. And as I observed, on in fear, discontent, and disbelief, who was I but the pig on the beat? Oh, how I bled inside, for these few young and deviant, full of fun, zest, and love. They gave not to light than society could foresee. They were but a mirror image of your children, you and me. They knew right from wrong, at time weak and strong. They made the street a live, one great big party for all to call. People of the streets, now defeated and gone. The boulevards now resemble a funeral chapel hall. I lost my badge in my fights with superiors during those daily PD meets. Too much, too late, I had to say. I lost and fell the same old way. Next came a chilling voice in the wind, a young man's fight, and life flickers as a candle in the wind. A young man fought back, never as good as new, but with one cause to tell the lie, help the weak and end police tyranny and its deceit. God rest his soul.
Yes.
But I can't help but feel that many officers are currently in the line of duty and may feel this way. And that's why I wanted to say it. And I know that's why this was posted recently on Cindy Stumpo's Facebook page. It took 33 years before this to come out. Like she had never posted it before. And yeah, I know when I read it, I was like, yeah.
Yeah.
It's powerful. It's from an officer, a young guy that dedicated his life. I mean, he went to school for 4 years and then served for 3 years and came out of it. I think,
it's very hard.
Yeah. And I think
that's why we all have to pray. We have to pray.
Yeah.
And we have to pray.
Yeah.
We have to pray for those officers that are in the light and that are making a change and making a difference to a better everything, we just have to hold everyone in a higher esteem.
Yeah, absolutely. And raise the vibration. And currently, right now, what we're in is to start to breathe. Like right now, that took my breath away, that prayer, but that is currently what is out in our country. And so it's important to actually feel that, but it's going to hit our cell tissue. We can't escape it. It's going to hit our cell tissue. And how we move through it is through breath work, through breathing, and being the scribe and acknowledging, yes, this exists, and shine the light on it. And
don't ignore it.
Yeah, and we're sorry for it. We want to move forward and make the right corrections. Now, do you feel like, I feel like as I speak this, and I have the power to speak this, I'm raising the vibration. And that is what our Black brothers and sisters are doing. They have been through this process already. This feeling, this negativity, and this anger. There are Black brothers and sisters who have felt this to their core. And they're some of them, their vibration, the ones that are really leading, their vibration is higher now. They're above it, like Martin Luther King was. All right.
Totally.
Yeah. And we as white people have to get there too. And see the future of this country together, work
as one.
As one.
We are all one, and
as one.
Everybody else that's come to this country that are minorities, like you were saying, immigrants, we all have to band together.
Yeah.
Everybody has to make this world a better place as we move forward.
Yeah.
Not see color, but see Americans.
Yes. Couldn't have said it better.
Yeah.
Great job.
Thank you. Thank you for listening, everybody, and we hope that things just get better.
Yeah, for sure. We want to thank you for joining us for this episode on Power and Social Injustice Part 2. We'll be coming back on Monday with I think we're going to get naked and talk about
get naked.
And yeah. And so if you enjoyed the show, or you have a comment, we'd love to hear from you. As always, we would enjoy the feedback. And if there's anything on here that inspired or motivated you or might motivate somebody else, please share it. Never miss an episode by subscribing to Evolve 360 on iTunes or at facebook.com/Evolve 360 Life.
We're on Spotify too. Spotify.
Yeah, YouTube.
We're all over the place. Exactly.
We're growing this baby. Yep. And this is Shelley Devine.
And Cheli Grace.
With Life Unplugged, Raw and Real. We'll see you on the next show of Evolve 360. Thanks so much for listening.
Thank you. Thank you so much for listening to our special episode on social injustice, part 1 and 2. And we hope that we have left you with a little light.